Hello and welcome to the Practice Marketing Podcast, highlighting successful strategies from North America's fastest growing clinics and experts so you can learn from their wins and power your practice growth. Hi, I'm your host, Neil Triggett, CEO of Practice Promotions, and today's focus, we're going to talk about financial advice for PTs and rehabilitation specialists in uncertain times. And our featured guest today is Eric Miller with Econologics Financial Advisors, and he's been on our podcast a whole bunch of times, giving fantastic advice. And Eric is the co-owner and chief financial advisor of Econologics, and he helps practice owners get the financial advice they deserve, because in private practice, it's a little bit different than in some other industries. And he's also the author of How to Become a Financial Beast, which became an Amazon bestseller in November of 2022. And today, Eric is going to give our audience here some advice on what to do and what not to do during uncertain economic times in your practice. So I think by the end, you'll feel a bit more control and optimistic about your practice, where you need to go, and your finances. So Eric, welcome back to the podcast.
And from one author to another, now that you have an awesome book out, congratulations.
Thanks, right. Eric. Appreciate that.
And I'm ready to roll.
Awesome. Let's do it. So let's start with the big picture here. We know that it's definitely been a very turbulent economic year so far, and that we've seen different impacts in different industries. And so I'm just curious from your side, how do economic factors like tariffs and trade wars and these recession fears, how does that impact a PT or a rehabilitation clinic, even if they're, that local service business?
Well, I think it impacts them more from a mental perspective than anything else, and look, I don't know that some of those outside economic factors like tariffs and some of these other things are going to ever have like a direct impact on a physical therapy practice. But what you hear and those outside influences can sometimes have a negative impact and can have a negative impact on how you allocate money and spend money and manage your cash flow. You may get too conservative when you have to actually get a little bit more aggressive at this point in time. So I think it kind of it messes with you a little bit more from that perspective. But I've been saying for a long time, look, 99% of the financial condition that you're in your business, in your household, has nothing to do with external factors. It's an inside job. And all the things that you have control over, your marketing, your sales, your, getting new patients, managing your cash flow, dealing with your employees, those are all things that are under your control. So try not to listen too much to the noise and the stuff out there. That is the job of the politicians and whoever's out there, is to create financial uncertainty. I still love this industry, still love healthcare. It's not going anywhere. And people need that physical touch that, healthcare owners bring, even more so than ever. So just keep doing what you guys are doing.
Yeah, that's great advice. I mean, when we think about it, it's like, as a local business, there's really not a lot nationally that impacts you, especially in what we're doing, right? It's not like you're importing, widgets from China and you're having to worry about your business. Now, I mean, that could, if you're in an area where there's, a lot of, construction or stuff manufacturing, things like that.
Yeah, industries that are affected by tariffs that could have a trickle-down effect, so to speak, on, the people in that area and their ability to pay or whatever it would be. Yeah, I mean, that could happen. But again, it's going to be how smart you navigate those things. There's always problems. Every year there's a new set of problems that we have to deal with.
That's the truth.
So just get used to it. That's why we signed up to do this thing. And
I was talking with a Canadian, actually I wasn't, but my team was talking with a Canadian clinic, and they were close. They had a big logging industry in their town, and I guess steel and stuff like that. So they had a lot of concerns at the beginning with a lot of the tariff and kind of trade wars there happening between Canada and the US, like that was going to impact the ability of the steel mill and the logging mill to be able to do stuff. And then they were, how was that going to impact the workers there and stuff? So there's obviously some legitimate concerns with that. But I think, again, what I've learned from you of a long haul is just that you can't ever put all your eggs in one basket. You got to always be looking at how can we diversify and make sure that we have ways of bringing in people to our business to service. And, there's plenty of times where we've seen a really good example is if you have a great relationship with a physician and he's sending you a lot of patients to your clinic, well, you have all your eggs in one basket, right? And if something happens to that physician, that's exactly what happened to me. Overnight, that physician opened up their own PT place and I lost 50% of my business overnight. So that kind of stuff happens when we don't pay attention when things are good, right? We're like just going for it in that one, and then we don't think about, oh, I'm kind of setting up myself for more risk here because I don't have diversified way of getting patients to me.
Yeah, if you're going to listen to anything that we say today, it's this: do not rely on one of anything.
Yeah, good point. And so speaking to that, what mindset can a practice owner have to make or break the business during tough times?
Hey, look, you got to be tough. You really do. You have to be tough. I think you have to kind of adopt a mindset of I'll say a word, unreasonable. It sounds bad, but I think you know what I mean. Like, it's like, I'm not gonna accept like excuses all the time. Mm-hmm. Like, at the end of the day, I need people just to get their jobs done and to do their work. And I can't accept, unusual solutions or excuses or anything like that. So, which, look, I know a lot of owners are not comfortable with that because you got into it to treat people and to help people and see patients get better. But, as an executive and as an owner, you do have a responsibility to the organization to make sure that everyone is doing their job. And sometimes you're gonna have to be tough to do that. And when we're in a situation right now where, look, it is, reimbursements are going down, but that's been happening for a long time. And staff pay is going up, but that's been happening for a while right now. So you're just going to have to, I think the key is you don't have to think too far outside the box. You just need to do the really basic actions of running a business. You just have to do them extraordinarily well. And if you can focus on that and not just think I have to come up with a new solution all the time, mm-hmm. I think that's a good mindset as well. Let's just focus on those things that we know will work, but let's just do them really, really well. Let's do them extraordinarily well, or find people to help me do them extraordinarily well.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I think it's one of the hard things of being an owner, right? An entrepreneur is that it's you've got a lot of options. You got a lot of things that are introduced to you all the time from different sources, whether that's in marketing, whether that's in operations, the new EMR solution that's come out, or there's lots of things that you're just having come at you all the time, and it's so easy to chase the shiny object.
Oh, right? My gosh, yes.
I'm sure you see a lot of that.
That happens hey, my buddy just earned 700% on this investment, and do you know anything about it? It happens all the time.
Yeah.
You got to look for consistency when you're choosing people. I think you got to choose people that understand your industry, that have the consistency of working with people that are in your industry, that are like-minded, and that have gotten actual results. Mm-hmm. And when you start like trying to just chase something, I think that's just a big mistake to do that.
Yeah. So like I think that's part of what I see really successful entrepreneurs, especially, in the rehabilitation space. What I think they do really well is they actually are good at saying no to a lot of stuff, right? They can kind of, they listen, right? And they listen to their team especially, and they kind of keep a good observation of what's happening in the industry and where can they take on opportunities. That's what I think they do very well, but they also are very good about saying no to things that could take them off of planned paths that they've already figured out.
Yeah. And the amount of money and attention that's going to cost you to learn something new, is just like, is it worth it, mm-hmm. To save a couple pennies? Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that somewhere the other day. It was like, I think, it was like Alex Hermosi, right? Kind of a big marketing guru guy. Mm-hmm. Business acquisition guy, and he was talking about the costs of change, and like if you're, whether it's like EMR is a very frequent example, right? So like electronic medical records. We're like, okay, I don't have all the features in this one system, but I see them in this other system, but that other system doesn't have some other features. But you know what? I'm going to transfer everybody over to this new EMR because it's like the hottest thing. And so then I jump over to that, but I don't realize all the amount of hidden costs in the labor and time and people having to train and figure it out, you know?
It's enormous. So before you start an endeavor like that, just really, boy, it really better have a big impact on your bottom line. If it's just going to save you, like I said, a couple of pennies, it's not worth it. It really isn't.
And have you seen that in practices? So you're looking at, hey, their growth of revenue, but they're wondering why they're flat, but maybe they've tried to change so many things during the year that they just haven't really been able to have the growth of revenue that they should.
That's why you have to have some kind of a strategic plan that said, this is what we're going to focus on this year. We're not going to focus on 10 different things. We're going to focus on 3 or 4 things. And we're just going to do those. And then you know what? Next year, maybe we'll add that to the list. But I think those owners that can stay focused to those things that are working well and strengthening them and stay away from some of the noise that they hear. And that means not always listening to your colleagues, because all you're going to hear from your colleagues is how terrible everything is, and, blocking that out. I think I'd like to see, more owners do that. I see so many big groups out there with, big groups of PTs, but then they just become complaint sessions, and that's no good.
I think COVID was an interesting time where we saw some of that with practice owners, right? Like it was, okay, we're shut down, we're still essential, we need to get people in here and treating. Like it was like, get people in here and treat, right? Yeah. And so, okay, I got to get masks, I got to do this, figure out the policies of social distance, whatever it was, right? But the main focus became treat people, right? Yeah. And keep them coming in the office and treat them, right? So I think yes, there was a lot of confusion in trying to like handle things, but the ones we saw clinics be successful during that time, and I think that was one of the things that was those successful clinics was that they really just doubled down on getting people in, treating them, and delivering great care.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
Now, when there's uncertain times, we know that cash flow is king, and so what would you say are some of the steps that clinic owners should take now to kind of protect or improve their cash flow now, and then looking into the future here, where there could be some more turbulent times?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing, you have to know your numbers, and you really have to understand what that means. When I say you have to know your numbers, we see too many of them. I've seen this happen, especially post-COVID, where because there was a lot of assistance they were getting, and there were a lot of patients, and they had to get rid of staff. Actually, for the first time, I started seeing balance sheets improve for PT owners. They had more cash. They saw higher profits. Now, it's been 5 years since then, and now I'm starting to see people revert back to bad habits again, where they are allowing the cash flow to get controlled. They're allowing the organization to spend, wildly. And they don't mean to do that, but it's because they don't really have a good grips of what their numbers are. And so I would say, most importantly, guys, just know what your numbers are. When I say know your numbers, like know exactly how much needs to be brought in every single month. Make sure that you're accounting for your profits to be part of those numbers, so that you're not just hoping and praying that money's going to be left over in the account. Because I got news for you. If you operate that way, it never will be. So that's, to me, from a cash flow perspective, is you guys got to think more like a CFO when it comes to that. And that's the priority.
Do you see a lot of that transition, that needed transition happen, as a practice approaches $1 million and tries to go beyond $1 million, like those kind of financial rudiments that you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's things that are going to break along the way, it seems like. And, as you start crossing certain thresholds, I guess when you first start up, what is it? I'm just trying to like see as many people as I possibly can. And then, oh, I probably should hire some people that can actually deliver. And then, but I have no administrative lines. There's no policy. Everything's just like, hey, you go do this. So now you got to bring in people to like, create stability in the organization. And, these phases along the way, look, you can find other people that have had that similar experience and learn from that. Part of the benefit of growing is just kind of going through them on your own and just be, okay, let's figure this out. How do we do this? And, I think that but yeah, along the way, especially from a financial perspective, you are going to have to pay attention more to, the different areas that an organization spends money on. Really, in a PT practice, there's three big buckets, I guess you could say. You have your practice facility expenses, which would just be like your rent and, utilities and such. You have divisional and overhead expenses, which, is like marketing and, certain overhead expenses. And then you have your staff pay, which includes benefits. And, these three, you got to keep at a percentage that allows you for that fourth bucket to have a 20% margin. And if you can't control these other ones, then that fourth piece of the profit margin is not going to be there.
So what do you typically see there? Because we know that payroll is obviously the biggest expense typically in a business, right? And so where do you like to see a practice operate as far as a percentage of payroll as their gross revenue?
Well, you're going to ask me, I'll answer that in two different ways. I'm going to answer it what I would like to see, which would be inclusive of benefits as well. Okay. Mm-hmm. And or all the expenses of an employee, which obviously are going to include payroll, taxes, and other things. If you can, God, it used to be like if you keep it under 50%, that'd be awesome. That's not probably real anymore. Yeah. If you can keep it in that 55% range, you are doing incredible. Okay. I see more people in that 60% range, which, you can probably still function, but it's got to be below that. When I start seeing PT practices operating in that 70, 75, 80% range, there's just nothing left over.
Yeah, that's hard.
There's no money to do anything else. Mm-hmm. So you really have to make sure that you keep that number in that range. And before everyone's like, well, you don't understand that these people want more and more money. And it's like, I don't care how much they want. Pay them $200,000 a year if you want to, but they're going to have to produce, in excess of that, for them to justify that pay. Yeah. I want to pay. I mean, I know you do too. I'd love to pay everyone $200,000 a year or $100,000 a year, but there has to be an exchange for the organization to warrant that kind of amount.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I think that's where practice owners are kind of feel squeezed today, is that they feel trapped by, reimbursement models, right, with the insurance companies. Yeah. The pay there, the revenue there is not changing, and a PT maxed out treating numbers of patients, they're only going to bring in a certain amount of revenue there, but the cost of keeping that PT on board, they want to make more money, and that, I think that's where people squeeze. So to me, I don't see us decreasing pay for therapy. Like, that's not going to happen, right? That's only going to increase with time. And then the other solution is get them to see more, which you're not, in today's market, you're not going to get a PT seeing 20, 25 patients a day like you used to in the Health South days back in the early 2000s, right?
That seems
what's
like
your solution? You got to make more money. Right? You got to make more money. So I think that's where you have to be really smart in how you are working your insurance contracts, your negotiations. Know your rate that you need to get. Yeah. And if you're not getting that from the insurance companies there, how can you market yourself better so that you can add in cash service lines to supplement that? How can you, go out and network with someone, right? If you're so well known in the area and you're able to market yourself better and sell the services better, there's clinics out there that are getting $200-$300 a visit, like in New York City and stuff, right? Because they are commanding themselves at the top of the market. So you gotta, you kind of promote yourself to the level that you want to be at.
Yes. And look, there are practices out there, PT practices that are doing 15 to 20% profit margins. I've seen them. You've seen them too.
Yep.
So it can be done. It is not a pie in the sky. It absolutely can be done. And so when I hear people that are happy, oh, hey, we made a 5% profit margin this month, or, you know, a 10% profit margin, I'm like, okay, great. But guys, I mean, that's not enough to expand. That's not enough to pay everyone well and yourself well as well.
Yeah.
So we have to make sure that bar, let's not accept like that scarcity as normal. It's not. It's not
and
at all.
I think we're in a big pivot, big transition now in our industry where we have such an opportunity in the health and wellness market. I mean, it's a massively growing, even in this times, people are paying way out of pocket for massage and stretch services and, you know, all kinds of, you know, IV treatments. I mean, you name it, right? Like people are spending money out there on themselves and taking care of their bodies. Like how can you get that piece of the pie? Right.
Yeah.
And we're in that just transition period where we're trying to figure it out as an industry, but I'm really excited to see, and we're trying to like bring more of these people on our podcast. I'm really excited to see practice owners out there who are bringing in all these different cash service lines and they're figuring it out and they're doing really well. You know, because they've figured out I can get paid more, or the rate that I should be getting paid at here, to obviously pay my staff well and have that percentage of profitability, you know, carried over at the end of the day. But you got to raise your rates, basically.
Yeah, look, I mean, you can sit there and complain about the soulless, blood-sucking insurance companies.
The top 10% of PT owners aren't just surviving, they're thriving. But what's their secret? Well, Neil Trickett's new Market2Grow book reveals how the top 10% of PT practices leverage marketing systems to simultaneously grow their new patients, attract top talent, and boost profit in their practice. You can learn from their secrets. Visit practicepromotions.net/book to claim your free copy of Market2Grow. Yes, you heard that right. We are shipping a free copy of Market2Grow to all podcast listeners who want it. Just visit practicepromotions.net/book to claim your free book. And now back to the show.
Or, you know, you can have a plan to fight them.
Yeah.
You know, and I choose to like encourage people to, you know, fight back.
Yeah. And we had a harder time fighting back like 10, 15 years ago because a lot of states didn't have as much direct access as they have today. So
I figured you'd like that blood-sucking soulless thing.
That was perfect. Yeah. You know, the vampire insurance companies. But you know, it's kind of one of those things too, when I've seen it where like, and this is where you see a lot of physician groups, right? So physician groups have gotten bigger and bigger because they've kind of banded together and from an economic model say, hey, you know what? We're much better here. We can have a harder negotiation with the insurance and get the reimbursement that we should be getting, when you can't, as an insurance company, offer physicians in the area because they're out of network now, right? And we'll do that eventually in the PT industry as
baby steps.
Yeah, we'll get there. But so we were talking a little bit here about expansion too. So
yeah.
What advice do you have for clinic owners who are carrying business loans at this time or considering taking on debt in the near future? Because you work with clinics that are expanding, you know, they take on debt to open a new location or expand or acquire other clinics.
Yeah.
What do you see there?
Well, I mean, look, the first rule of expansion for me is always make sure that your current facility is operating at or near capacity before you decide to do that, which is, I think, one of the basic laws of expansion. You know, a lot of people that'll come to us, maybe you as well, say, hey, I want to, if I could just get over into this other area here, it would solve all my financial problems, you know, while they're running 40% at capacity at their current clinic. Okay. It's just going to spill new problems into a new location. So I think first and foremost, make sure that you get up to capacity at your current practice. And if it's not there, then obviously you need, you know, to increase your marketing and production to be able to do those things. And that's where I would focus on. But when it comes to borrowing money, you know, look, lenders aren't awesome for PTs. They don't love you guys. They don't hate you guys, but it's kind of a neutral relationship when it comes to lenders. They'll probably let you borrow up to maybe 80% of the revenue of a practice as long as it's profitable. And I know this because I've been talking to some of these lenders here recently.
Okay.
It's possible, without having to go the SBA route or using all your other things as collateral, as opposed to just using a practice that you want to purchase or acquire as collateral. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that being said, when it comes to borrowing money, I'm all for it as long as you guys have confidence that you know what you're doing, and it's you're not doing it just to solve a problem of undercapacity. It's like, I'm busting out at the seams right now. I need to go somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And that's when I would start looking at borrowing. But, borrowing money rates aren't great right now. It's probably 7.5, somewhere around there. Mm-hmm. So if you can find some seller financing deals out there, owners are willing to do that, where you can just find an owner that maybe you have a practice that you want to buy, and say, hey, look, rates are kind of high right now. Maybe you're willing to carry a note mm-hmm. for a period of time. You can always do something. Yeah. To negotiate.
There's lots of ways to spin a deal.
Yes,
right?
For sure.
And I think that, it comes down to, it was so perfect what you said, right? In that if you have all your ducks in a row in your clinic and you're operating really smoothly, and being profitable, like, can you take what you are doing well to another area? Maybe that's a de novo, brand new clinic, or maybe it's smarter to acquire clinics and you got better processes and you could work with the people that are already in place there. And I'm kind of curious from your end, as you work with clinics, obviously on acquisitions, exits, things like that. What do you see as the better way of doing it? And like in today's market, is it like going to brand new, or starting something up brand new, or is it acquiring clinics? Obviously, it might depend on the situation, but
it does. I don't know. I just always like I always like someone that can find a practice that's already established, and maybe you just have a burnout owner, and but that does have some semblance of a business there. Has referral sources, has patients coming in, has a staff, and just being able to kind of like imbue some life into that one, put you some systems in place, and you can really get it up and going quickly mm-hmm. because it's already been established. And, you can probably get a good deal on the practice, in that way. So I'm kind of partial to that.
Okay. And would you say, and here's an interesting question. Would you say that if you're looking to acquire another clinic or clinics, a clinic that is a burned out owner, maybe they're doing okay, but their profitability isn't great, or a clinic that has their stuff together and has a great profit already, and you're going to pay more for that clinic, but it's already rocking and rolling. So like, what do you see there as an opportunity?
I kind of like the latter one, where a practice is already doing pretty well, and okay, so what? I overpay. I pay a little bit more for it. What does that mean? Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean anything. It means I already have something that's producing cash flow. I'm going to add that on to what I'm already currently building right now, and in 5 to 7 years I'll have it paid off, and I'll have this practice now that's part of my little empire that I'm building, and I'll be able to maybe double my EBITDA by doing mm-hmm. that. And, with the values that I'm seeing right now on good practices, that could be in that 6 to 8 multiple, of earnings. Yeah. You can see what a good practice would like. There's nothing wrong with buying a good practice and paying fair market value for it. Mm-hmm. Like, I wouldn't be afraid of that. Like, let's look for the good ones.
Yeah.
But if you find something where the only thing that is missing on a practice is that we have a bad owner that just isn't really engaged anymore, mm-hmm. then you can just don't overpay for it. That's all I'm saying.
Gotcha.
Just don't overpay for it.
Yeah. And you kind of see this in the market with the way acquisitions are, that there's clinics that have that model of acquiring to build. Mm-hmm. And then I think once you hit a certain number of EBITDA or general revenue, like your values go up even further. The valuation rate goes up further.
Yeah, for those that are like trying to figure out like when is the next step up. I don't know. There's really not a hard and fast rule. Typically what I'll see is if, I don't know, let's say like I took like a $2 million practice, one that had like a 5% profit margin, one that had a 10% profit margin, and one that had a 20% profit margin. Well, $2 million revenue at a 5% profit margin is only like 100,000 of profit. That probably would only sell for maybe a 3 to 4 times multiple.
Okay.
Which kind of sucks. Then you have a 2 million that's doing 10%. Maybe that would go for a 4 to a 5 just because of the volume there, which okay. But you got a $2 million practice that's doing a 20% margin, especially in today's environment. I mean, you could see a 6 or a 7 multiple on that. So 3 very different outcomes.
Yeah.
On the same revenue practice. Don't always focus on revenue. Revenue doesn't equal profitability. Profitability is what your practices are mostly valued on. So that's why, I'm always a little bit more, I kind of like focus more on the profitability than just the volume itself. They're both important, but I think profitability is what's going to determine value.
Gotcha. And so speaking to that, let's talk about staffing, right? So
yeah,
how should clinic owners think about payroll, hiring, or even letting people go during, some economic uncertainties or like how the practice is doing generally, if patient volume starts to dip?
This is definitely the difference between, and I know we all have our own disdain for like corporations and big corporations and private equity groups coming in. One thing that they do extremely well though, is they will not tolerate, unproductive people on the staff, and they'll get rid of them very quickly. Whereas, we're kind of softies at heart. We love this person. We think he's good at, maybe he can recover. We'll see. We don't want to let people go. But look, what did I hear this? You got A, B, and C players, right? Not everyone's going to be in. You're not going to have a whole staff of A players. You're going to have some Bs. You want A's and B's. You don't want C's.
Right.
And I think everyone knows what I mean when I say a C player. So the more you can kind of move the C players off, the better the organization's going to be.
Yeah, makes sense. And we hear this when a clinic is, for whatever reason having some struggles, the first thing they want to cut is marketing. Right, which is absolutely the wrong thing.
Boggles my
do,
mind.
Right, that's your throttle for your business. So you're going to cut back on your throttle. That's just the wrong thing to do when you need to make more money. But they hold on to the staff, right? Because it's that fear of I can't get another person in here, or what if it picks up and I can't get another person in here? So we see that quite often, where they should be cutting back on some staff or cutting hours or something like that. Or like you said, really evaluating, is this an A, B, or C player? Or sometimes those C players are causing the business to struggle. Like if you have a poor front desk person and they may not, maybe they're a nice person, but they're not very productive or good at the front desk like they should be. And that person is costing you patients not coming in for visits or canceling or not getting reschedules. And so the rest of the staff suffers because they don't have, they have holes in their schedule, right? And that's costing you a lot of revenue too. Sometimes those things are a little hard to see. And then you're like, okay, I don't want to let her go at the front desk because that's, what I got to get someone to fill that, train them up again, all this kind of concerns that they have. But it's
a roller coaster. But I mean, you have to hire on competency. And can people just do the job? Can they follow orders, and can they follow through to complete a cycle so that it gets done? And that's how people are measured. And if you don't measure that way, then you're going to continue to have struggles with cash flow. And, but yeah, I think that seems to always be the biggest struggle for a lot of owners, is to be able to do that. But yeah, going back to your marketing point, I mean, almost every book I've ever read on what you do when there is a cash flow crunch. Okay. You cannot economize your way into solvency. You cannot do it. What I mean by that, you can't cut enough expenses to become solvent. It will not work. So you have to make sure that your promotion and marketing are at the forefront when you are feeling the pinch of a cash flow crunch. It's numero uno. If it's not numero uno, it's in the top 5, so to speak. So that's, I mean, and if you do that, you'll get out of it. And if you don't, then you won't.
Yeah.
I guess it's that black and white when it comes to that.
Yeah. Well, we see that time and time again, helping people turn their business around when, just get some good marketing in place, right? And then the patients will come in, the revenue will come in, and you can get back on track with things.
Yep.
So I'm curious here, as far as, obviously we're talking about expenses here and looking at things like that, and in an uncertain market, what should owners be kind of looking at or tracking in their P&L, the profit and loss, or the balance sheet to stay ahead of trouble?
Well, I think we talked about the staff pay percentage. Yep. And certainly that's going to be, a big component to look at. How much are people spending on marketing and promotion right now? I mean, of just not having a high, that could, because to me, your payroll would include having someone on there that's doing those functions, but then how much are you just spending on straight marketing and promotion as well? And I think, you've always told me it should be about 10%, so I'll just believe you.
Well, it'll be, yes, and it depends on your growth, but typically for healthcare it's like 5 to 8%.
Okay, that seems fair.
But
yeah,
it's shocking how many clinics I run into that are like 2% or less.
Oh no,
like, okay, you spend 2% of what you make on trying to get new business in the door. Like, why do you think you're struggling?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, 2%'s way too low. I mean, that's pretty rare that I see that. But 5 to 8% sounds, about right. And again, it is, you cannot view it as, geez, this is an expense. It's a necessity. Like, getting new patients in the door is a necessity. It's going to do wonders for the staff morale. It's going to do wonders for the value of the practice. Like, all those things, it's going to do wonders for. So you have to put a priority on that. You cannot go sideways. You're either going up or you're going down. And, we tell people that all the time. Just don't try to get into a point where I just want to stay steady. Like, it's not going to happen. So, and not only that, but who wants to buy something or no one's going to pay top value for something that's going sideways or down. Like, if you're not seeing more new patients, if you're not growing to that end, then, that they're going to ask that question. I mean, you ask any buyer, and I have, of practices, and like, what do they look at? Of course, they're going to say profitability. Of course, they're going to say, staff. And of course, but they're also going to say, is there growth? What's the growth rate? And they'll pay for that as well. Yeah,
definitely. And so you look at, when you're helping a practice owner, obviously there's the business aspect and then the personal side of things too. And so for you, like, where do you like to start with someone? Do you usually say, hey, let's look at your personal financial flows here? Or do you let's look at the business financial flows? Like, what do you typically look at there?
Well, I always start at the household level, because that's where all the goals and purposes are. We try to start there, and we'll say, hey, look, what do you want your life to look like in 5 to 7 years? And everyone will kind of say the same thing. Well, I'd like to have, enough money coming in where I can have passive income. I'd like to have no debt. I'd like, to be able to take some time off and, be able to enjoy, aspects of my life. Great. Okay. Well, how much is that what is the number on that? What's that look like? Okay. How much is it going to cost for us to be able to build that life? And that's a number. It's going to be different for everybody, but how much money is it going to take for you to, live the lifestyle that you want to live right now, allocate money for future income sources, and have discretionary income to do the things that you want to do? I mean, most people have zero idea how much that is for them. All they know is how much their lifestyle costs. Okay. So we figure that part out first. And then what that does, it says, okay, this is how much I need. What does my business now need to do for me to provide for that lifestyle that I want. Okay. So that's how we do it. We'll start at the household level and figure that out. And then we'll go to the business and say, okay, your business, which is doing $1 million right now, which is fine, but for you to have everything you want in your household to do what you want to do, you need to be doing $1.5 million. So how do we figure that out? And then I'll give the problem to you to figure that out for them.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's good. That makes sense, right? You start. I think a lot of times we get it backwards, right?
We 100% do it backwards.
The business, we got to do the business. Everything goes to the business, and then like you're burned out, and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't have any money left over at the end of the day.
The household never gets addressed, and we have to keep the household in the equation because, I mean, you like to fly, man. That's an expense, right? And but that gives you enjoyment in life. Got to factor that in.
Definitely.
And all these things that you want to do with your lives and experiences you want to have with your families, and the fact that you don't want to be working when you're 75 or 80 years old. So how do we accelerate this process? And the good thing is that everyone, most owners, they have a business, they can utilize it. Just you have to learn how to utilize it better than what a lot of them are doing right now.
Yeah, I think that was one like kind of eye-opening working with you guys was being because I started with you guys when I was PT owner, just transitioning from being a PT owner.
Just a lonely PT owner in Florida.
A lonely PT owner, yeah. Back in 2011.
Yeah.
Right? So, but yeah, that was that concept for me. What you taught us, which was the household is the parent company, right?
Yeah,
and that's still stuck with me today. So like, it's so easy as we're taking care of our business, our practice, our baby. We're putting our blood, sweat, and tears into this thing. And we don't take time to look at what's more important, which is our household, right?
Yeah.
And all our financials around our household and how secure that is. And, are we protecting our assets there? Are we building our assets there in our house? And is the business providing me the income that I need for the lifestyle I want to build for myself and my family? And so it's a different mindset. It's a different, shift in your thinking because you can get so trapped in that practice day-to-day finances and, getting stuck with that. So I think it's just a great model in the way that you change your thinking.
Yeah. And you set your systems up based upon that, and once you do that, things just start to change a little bit, and it does start to create not only freedom from the practice, but financial independence as well, because you set these systems up.
Yeah.
And it's really important that people do that. I can't emphasize that enough. Your life will be so much happier in 5 to 7 years by starting those things right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the finance, the money, right, is there to provide you freedom, right, and peace of mind and power for the future. And so like it's such a critical thing to think about and put your attention on. And they always say like money can't buy you happiness, but it could buy you a jet ski.
Damn right it can.
Just go jet skiing and have fun.
Well said, my English friend.
Love it. So Eric, you've given us some great insight here today. And I love what you said at the beginning, like the outside forces don't really matter that much. We can do so much focusing on our own practice, our business, or serving our area, serving the people in our area, and the people that work for us. So there's a lot of opportunity definitely in the market right now for the PT and rehab industry. Oh,
I'm super high on the industry. I think, as bad as everyone wants to seem to make it, and of course there's going to be struggles, but I mean, I don't see where this kind of, look in 10 years, some of the industries that are not going to be there anymore because of AI and some other things. Physical therapy will not be one of them.
Right.
Yeah. That will continue.
To have the Tesla robots.
Unless we're like all hooked up to like Neuralink.
Yeah.
And we're just operating out of a little machine box or something like that.
Yeah. We still got to keep the bodies going. So
that's true.
Right. But cool. Well, thanks, Eric. I appreciate all your insight and input here today. What's the best way for people to learn more about what you do to help clinics?
Well, they can just go to wealthforpts.com, wealthforpts.com. You can do that. Or just go to our website, econologics.com.
Great. Awesome. Yeah. And they've got some great resources on there, some good books there to kind of you can get for free, right? There you go, the Financial Beast book.
How to become a financial beast. Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah, get that Financial Beast book, and it gives you great ideas in the direction of financial stability for you and your practice. So thanks, Eric. I appreciate you being on the podcast with us here today.
My pleasure, bud.
Yeah, and to all our listeners out there, thank you so much for being on the Practice Marketing Podcast. We appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe so you can listen to future episodes. And then don't forget to check out our YouTube channel where we got tons and tons of free advice for you there on marketing your clinic, as well as other great stuff. That's right on our YouTube channel. And then don't forget to go to practicepromotions.net where we've got great free downloads. You can get our book and all kinds of great stuff to help you market your practice. This is Neil Trickett from the Practice Marketing Podcast, wishing you much success in your practice.
A free way for you to support our show is by leaving a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It's a chance for you to tell us what you love about the show, and it helps others discover it as well. Just scroll down to ratings and review on your phone and click write a review. Thanks.